Hey everybody, happy Saturday night. It is April 5th, 2025. This is Across the Pitch post-game show. I am joined by my Bolivian brother, Jose Nunez. Jose, you and I are both home tonight. We are not at Super Park. I have a lot of thoughts tonight. I do. I have a lot of thoughts on tonight's performance. But first of all, sir, how are you? And how's your weekend been going?
So far, so good, Mike. Thanks. It's nice to be with you tonight. It's one of those rare occasions where we're both actually in a similar spot in terms of not the stadium. Weekend's going good. It's going well, I should say. Today was my nephew's third birthday party, and I got to watch kids run around with a fake swoop Eagles mascot that my brother rented. It was like the New York City version. It was incredible. It was just completely like it was you could tell it was like the Timu version, but the kids loved it. Adults love it. I have a picture grinning ear to ear, so it was fun. But that also unfortunately meant I wasn't able to make the game, but for a very very good reason. So currently on duty, I'm watching Houston, Los Angeles here, and my previous two games are now done, which the Union was one, and then the uh, Austin versus Portland game was my second. So MLS has my time. So if at any point I have to jump, you understand why.
I'll carry the show, sir. I'll do my best. Actually, speaking of the Houston game, one of my friends, I believe you met, my friend Dana. She used to
Yeah,
live around here. She moved to Texas. She's at the game right now with her daughter, watching Mr. McGlynn and seeing how she has her Union gear on, and her daughter has her Andre Blake keeper jersey on. So a little, little Union pride out there, out in Houston.
that's
But
very cute.
yeah, yeah, it's very nice. I have family visiting from Mexico for about 2 weeks. So right now we let's go to Zed's, something local, something close by. Had a couple drinks and got to watch the Union pull out a 0-0 draw at home. Uh, I have a lot of thoughts on that result, a lot of thoughts on the game. Jose, I'm assuming you caught the entire match. What is your overall thoughts on the performance tonight against Orlando, which ended up again 0-0?
I think maybe half full take is that this was a very enjoyable 0-0 draw. It was actually fun
Sure.
to watch, right? In terms of both teams going at it. At the Union were certainly, and I think all statistics, I haven't looked at them. But eye test wise, it was pretty obvious that the Union sort of dominated this match. Um, hold on a second. I just got a text message from a source.
No worries. Just to bring up some of these stats that Jose is talking about tonight, we had a 63% possession for the Union, 37% for Orlando. We had 21 shot attempts. We had 4 yellow cards. We only had 4 shots on goal. Corner kicks, we had 8. And I'll talk about the corner kicks as well in a second with you, Jose. I
Hmm.
personally, I feel like we left points on the table. I thought we should have left with 3 points. But I don't want to discredit Orlando. They came into here with pretty good form. If you want to look at Orlando's last few games, they have just beaten or LA Galaxy 2-1. They just beat DC United 4-1. They drew against the Red Bulls 2-2. They lost to NYCFC, but then they had beaten Toronto 4-2 just before that. So we had an Orlando team coming in here. It's on a pretty good form overall. I think if you ask anybody ahead of the season, you figured if you could pull off a draw in Orlando, that would have been a positive. They ended up winning 4-2. And obviously, the reverse of that, you would have liked to see 3 points at home. So I think if you take 4 points from your opponent as a whole, in the grand scheme of things, that's a positive. But we know Orlando is going to be one of those teams that's going to be fighting for the top of the playoff spot come the end of the season. You would have liked to have taken 6 points from them this early in the year, especially. So for me, I thought we missed our opportunity to do that, but I thought we just missed a lot of chances to put one in the back of the net, both in the first half and the second half. And for those of you at the stadium, you saw Ryan Howard, the big piece, was a drummer tonight, and my God, we could have used that offense tonight for the Union. So, what were your thoughts overall on? Maybe let's start with the first half, Jose. What were your thoughts on the
Uh,
first 45 minutes?
yeah, I think the first half it was pretty identical to the second half, and
Mm-hmm.
as you talked about stats, it's pretty obvious. I'm finally looking at. It. I'm like, yeah, this makes sense. But one that's sort of like jumping at me is 63% to 37% possession. As press have heard how Cornell does not want to. His idea is to turn the ball over high up top, force them to turn the ball over high up top, and try to, go ahead and score the ball, score a goal right away if they can, or press them in such a way that that they can go ahead and just pressure them right away. 21-6 in terms of shots. That's unbelievable. But one that's really, really jumping to me is, and this is a Philadelphia Union team that is definitely not built to do this, is they outpassed in terms of accurate passes. They outpassed Orlando 385-200 with
Wow.
79% pass completion. This is, again, a team that is not built for possession. That was the whole idea of the whole idea of moving McGlynn was obviously the athleticism, the pressing, etc. But when you're out possessing teams like this in terms of overall possession as well as passes, holy smokes, could they have used a Jack McGlynn to be pulling the strings maybe in a more surgical way? So it's a bummer that it obviously ended this way for them. Uh, I take a step back as someone who's representing MLS and just sort of like taking the Union hat off to an end. It's like, good on Orlando, right? Like, they came away from home to a team that has had a great season so far, second in the East, scoring goals in bunches.
Yep.
Fortunate to play against a team without Kai, in terms of Kai, and withstood. I mean, look no further than the first half, Mike. Pedro Gallese, the Peruvian goalkeeper, El Pulpo, as they call him, wasting time in the first half. It was unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. It's like, okay, this is the game plan, isn't it? They're just
Yeah.
going to try to weather the storm, and they sure as hell did. So kudos to them for coming to Super Park and walking away with points, a point.
Absolutely. And I'll kind of touch upon what Liam and Evan talked about just now in the comments. But on YouTube, Mandy joins us tonight. They're allergic to shooting the ball towards the net. I do feel like they could not get something on target. Either they were trying some crosses that were just not getting anywhere near someone that was in position to score. They were taking, I want to say, at least 4 or 5, maybe a little bit less shots 20 yards or out that were just well over the crossbar, really not, threatening the keeper at all. As Evan kind of brings up here, lacking creativity in the final third. They just didn't seem like they could finally get that final piece together to put one to the back of the net. And again, Jose, to your point, kind of credit to Orlando for really just attacking them the right way once the Union were in that final third. But Kai Wagner, a visible absence tonight. We saw Frankie Westfield, we saw Harriel as well on the either side of the center backs. What were your thoughts on Kai's absence tonight and Westfield and Harriel's performances?
I think Westfield did absolutely fine.
Yeah.
He was absolutely serviceable. In fact, I think he found himself in some very good positions, and it's not, that doesn't just happen, right? In terms of making your way up the field, but also defensively. I could think of one where maybe Jovan Lukic, I posted a clip of it where Jovan, and if you're a defender, I sort of alluded to it. If you're a defender and you slide tackle the way he did that one time to sort of keep the possession as well, that shit feels as good as a goal. It is an unbelievable feeling when you nail a slide tackle like that, especially on wet grass and like a chilly night. It feels amazing. But Frankie was great. I think I don't want people to lose track. This is a 19-year-old kid who was genuinely 1 week away, as I understand it, from going to play at Penn State. So it is an unbelievable story that someone who's bet on himself. And there's a clip I'll be posting in a little bit in the 18th minute that Frankie Westfield does not take shit from anybody. The blonde center back from Orlando, Giganto, last year, I think, or 2 years ago, broke his nose, and it was like sideways against the Union. Big tough guy, don't get me wrong. Frankie, in the 18th minute, back and forth, yapping at him, just saying, "No, I'm not taking shit from you, of all people." So I think Frankie was fine. I wish there would have been more to remember, and this is maybe I don't want to be overly critical, but I don't think of many sequences where Nate really stood out.
I agree with that.
It sort of felt like he went under the limelight a little bit, and sometimes that's good, right? As a defender, it's almost like when you don't notice him, it's a good thing because it means that he's doing his job in a way. But it's also athletically and attacking wise, I felt like he was just maybe lacking a little bit. I could be wrong. I need to probably look at more clips. Maybe I was focusing on different things. Yeah, Mandy Jansen. Yeah, Mandy's got it right. But man, the pairing between Johnson and Schlegel is like two brutes that I wish that they have such punchable face. It's unbelievable. Just how dislikable the two can be.
Valerie texted me, our friend Valerie, who's out in Australia, by the way. So,
Oh
safe
wow.
travel. Yeah, safe trips out there. She's out there for several weeks. She texted me, she said, Jansen just is someone who gets under my skin or something along those lines. So I think everybody kind of just is fed up with Jansen. But to your point, Jose, and to Mandy, again, thanks for joining us tonight. Frankie just doesn't put up with shit. He's that Philly boy that he's got that Philly toughness that we love from our athletes. And I think in general, we saw Vasilev get chippy later on in that
Oh.
game with a little thing with Uwan. We'll get to that second half in a bit. But I do. I like what I saw from Frankie Westfield. Nothing too crazy. But I agree with you as well with Harriel. I wasn't blown away by anything tonight in particular. The one thing I want to kind of touch upon, and Evan's kind of hinting at here, Orlando's packing the box. They felt like they were just kind of parking the bus at times. There were about, I want to say, 3 corner kicks in tonight's match that we went short instead of going into the box. And I was a bit disappointed by that in the sense that you knew that you really weren't going to get a clear shot on target this game. I would have liked at least try to test the keeper and try to test to see if Glesnes or Glavinovic could get in there and get a header on one of those. But again, we also saw without Kai Wagner, we saw a little bit difference with Vasilev taking some of the corner kicks as well. I think he took 2 of the corner kicks tonight, especially with his left foot. So we're seeing other options besides Kai Wagner or, Jack McGlynn, obviously, who's no longer with us, taking these free kicks, taking these corner kicks. But one person that we also should talk about tonight is Damiani. He makes the start over Uwa tonight. What were your thoughts on Mr. Damiani on his, I think he had about 60 minutes, 65 minutes tonight, around there?
Around there, if I
Yeah.
recall. I think this is maybe the future of the Philadelphia Union, right? And I alluded to it. I don't know anything. I alluded to it on my tweet. I got to be careful about that, Mike, because I know people take a lot of what I say and sort of like, okay, this is law. And it's like, please just ease. But let's not forget whether the Union were going to do it anyways or not. Uwa's contract for this year was automatically triggered due to performances from last year, where his club option was automatically triggered. Jim Curtin said as much. The clip is out there. It's on the record. You don't buy a Bruno Damiani for the fee that they paid, which is small for other clubs, very large for the Philadelphia Union, record as we know it.
Yes.
But I think that maybe this is the pairing that carries the Union beyond 2025 for the length of Baribo and Damiani's contract. Bruno was in 2 or 3 instances within an inch or 2 of tapping a goal in, and just very close. And I remain surprised at just how, and I hope to make it to a practice at some point here in the near future. I remain surprised at how good he is for his age in terms of leveraging his body, his size, the way that he was sort of shielding people. Instead of jumping for an air ball, he knew when to stand tall and sort of like duck a little bit so the body could block the ball from the defender. Evan nailed it there. The way that he presses the ball, it's almost like a physical, like a very physical and much stronger Carranza, the way that he works up top to close the ball, but also with some unbelievable brains to make runs into the box. His touches are it still feel like he's got cement touch, cement feet, steel toe boots, as I would sometimes say in high school to my friends.
Little Sam Adena in those.
Yeah,
I don't want to jinx him. Don't want to jinx him, but go ahead.
A tiny bit, but all in all, I remain very hopeful for what he's showing. And this is still only his, what are we in, sixth or seventh match with the Union at this point. So he still has a lot of ground to cover. And maybe I want to switch it a little bit here. Hey, Colin, I want to switch the gears here and ask you a question. How are you feeling about the Glesnes-Glavinovic pairing? I have thoughts, and I'll start off by saying I'm ready to see a Makanya-Glavinovic pairing here in the near future.
Oh, God. Okay. Well, first off, a little AAT sports thing. So just I see every single comment is YouTube, and I checked on my notifications right now. So for those who are watching right now, if you post on the Philadelphia Union discussion page, you have to wait for an admin to allow you to present your post. So I have shared our show rather multiple times on that channel, and they have been very delayed with posting it on the Facebook. So if you don't follow AAT Sports Network on Facebook yet, please do, so that way you automatically get the live notification that we are on. Don't always rely on the Union fan discussion page admins to accept our posts, because sometimes they can be delayed with that. So just a thing here. I appreciate all you join us on YouTube, though, because obviously the comments are coming in and we're getting a lot of great conversation. So that's the first thing. So don't think I'm not posting on Facebook. I am. I just have to wait for the admins. Jose, I'm going to go to your point here, though. I felt like Andre Blake had to save us 4 or 5 times tonight. And you and I could probably agree that Glessens was a part of 2 of those, if not 3 of those moments where the defense was caught kind of flat-footed and Orlando had a good chance to score a goal. I know in particular, I think you posted on Twitter about one of those instances as well with Glessens. I feel like Jacob is showing inconsistencies again. You'll see times where he looks like his 2022 form, and you'll see times where he looks very much like he did last year, very much like he did after his injury, and he was kind of going through that what was a hernia, I believe, recovery. So I'm big on chemistry, especially as a defensive player. I was a defensive player. Chemistry is massive for that back line, especially center backs. I don't disagree with you at all, Jose. I think you have to get a little bit creative, and Macania did fine with Glessens. I would not be upset if Macania put one with Glavinovic as well, because I just don't think for one, I think Glessens is a rest eventually. But the second time, you need competition. You need to get a little fire under Jacob's belt. Like, you're not going to start every single game, especially if you're almost blowing these matches, which seems like on a regular basis he's making some sort of costly mistake out there. And I'll put these comments up here in a moment. Go ahead, Jose.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, and I hope that I want to see the alchemist and Bradley Cannell come out and start messing around with this, right, and try to create gold out of it all. But I hope that it doesn't happen, and I don't think the Union have any leverage to allow it to happen the way that Jim did, in terms of using. And we know Jim was, to me, sort of infamous and famous for, in a good and bad way, but like to mess around with the lineups when it mattered most, right? In terms of playoff games or one-off, play well and move on, shit the bed, you're out. I hope he doesn't get into messing around with it with the U.S. Open Cup. Like, I hope that the U.S. Open Cup genuinely, the way that this season's shaped out for the Union, there's 2 competitions. It's the regular season and U.S. Open Cup.
Yeah.
I hope that the Union put all of their eggs in the U.S. Open Cup until it's time to push for the playoffs, because we know it's a tournament. It's no longer, a normal playoff that the way it used to be prior to the switch 2-3 years ago. So to me, to see a Glessness, Olwethu Macania and Glavinovic pairing, it's to me so exciting, and I'm intrigued. I wonder if the contract, and I don't know, I have no idea, no inside knowledge, but I would think that it was either Glessness or Elliott that had to go this offseason, and Elliott was maybe the easier one to move because of the contract that Glessness is on. But man, that's, and everybody slips. I get that. Nobody's above that type of issue, but there's some moments where Glessens just gets pulled away so easily and just goes well into the midfield, and then it's such an easy lane. And when you have a striker in terms of Orlando with Muriel, that guy is a serious baller. I know he doesn't seem like it from time to time, but I don't know if you recall, and I think they might have said it on one of the broadcasts, but his first goal in MLS was against the Union last year. And if you don't remember it, look it up from last year. It was a banger of a goal from outside the 18 on his weaker foot. So I know I rambled on for a little bit, but I'm excited to see some of the experimenting that I think Cornell's going to have to do now that they're going on to, what is this, week 8, going into having to think about legs and minutes a little bit more than the first 3 or 4 weeks. Never mind international breaks, where Danley Jean-Jacques had to go to Azerbaijan to play 90 minutes and then have to come back. So 22 hours of flying to play 90 minutes it's an unbelievable trek. But yeah, and I'm intrigued to see when they start experimenting a bit more.
I think the fans who are commenting out here in our obviously comment section are agree with you. You know, Liam's mentioned holding his breath every time he takes a risky tackle decision. Mandy says we all love Glessness. We gotta let go of the idea of Glessness of the 2022 Glessness. Colin, I'll get to your point about Kevin Sullivan in a minute. But it seems like fans are in the same boat as us right now. We're kind of concerned about everything that Jacob does for 90 minutes. My concern is if you're going to go for next week's match on April 12th at NYCFC, we know how difficult that small little pitch can be out there in New York. And also, I guess if you want to look at Carnell from Carnell's perspective, we know how experienced Jacob is. Does he take the risk of saying, you know what, I'm going to try to just, shoot my shot and go with Makanya and Glavinovic, or even Pierre and Glavinovic, and see what happens? But at the same time, if they get blown out like 5-1, he's going to be on the hot seat for the fact that, well, you took out Jacob Glessness, who has consistently been a reliable defender, to some extent. Does he want to put himself in that position where he could get pretty heavily scrutinized if they do end up blowing a game pretty dramatically? So I'm curious to see with that. I think everybody's in agreement that it's worth a shot. It's something we talked about, 3.5 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. This team looks great early on, or very good early on. This team is not a great team just yet. There's obviously some things that need to improve, and I think that back line is one of those things that some experimenting might end up finding something really productive with a different pairing. And if you have to put Jacob Glessness on the bench in that role, so be it. You got to do what's best for the team. But you want to add anything to that really quick?
No, I think when you start thinking about this experimenting, right? Like, I want. What's up, Todd? I would like to see some of these young guys get in, right? I genuinely and earnestly want to see David Vasquez, a CJ Olney, and Andrew Rick, where it's beyond, like a Blake injury or international duty. But it's also tough because I don't want to see them thrown into the deep end when it matters most, like the U.S. Open Cup. It's just it's difficult. But at some point, a Jovan Lukic needs to rest, right? And where do you plug in, right? And is it Raffanello? I guess. At some point, Damiani or Baribo specifically will need to rest. So it's Chris Donovan, I guess, question mark. Ua, maybe. Like, it's just, I know and I've been guilty of it, roller coasting a little bit in terms of like, there's depth on this roster. No, there's not. Yes, there is. No, there's not. It's just, I'm so intrigued. And let's not forget, just for those that are keeping track, there are still the transfer window does not close till April 23, if I recall. So for what it's worth, there could be movements. Who knows what? Again, I don't know anything. But what happens to Mbaizo? He certainly seems like the odd man out as someone who could have played today, but certainly didn't. Some of these other players that are on the outside looking in.
So I'm gonna leave this question out with from Mandy, and I think everybody's kind of brought up Kevin, Evan's talking about the subs, so we'll kind of touch upon the substitutions in 1 second, but really quick, kind of end this center back conversation. Mandy mentions, is there a world where we play three in the back with Glavinovic, Makanya, and Pierre, or even throw Glessness in that if you want to kind of mix up three center backs?
Yeah, Pierre's interesting. As I've heard or been told by people who are within the club, a couple of people at this point, actually, Pierre did not have the greatest of preseasons. I don't know what that means. From what I saw in the preseason matches that I was able to watch, and that of Slavia Praha, the Cincinnati match, and AGF, he looked totally the part. But I also don't know what he looked like the 6 days leading into a match, right? Or in between matches. So I wonder where he stands, though. He had a fantastic international break. He had a fantastic Union 2 match against, it wasn't Chattanooga. I forget who, but that's MLS Next Pro. It's a completely different world. but Pierre would be interesting to see at some point. So I honestly would not hate a three in the back pairings, but I also you really can't do that once Kai comes back because you want him on this field, right? So
He's a
like
must start.
right, so it's very obvious he's a must start after you watch these last 2 to 3 games, right? So I'm more intrigued about how Kai's injury is healing and how long. I don't have enough. I heard one date of potential return. I don't have enough sourcing behind it, but we'll see. That's all I'll leave it at.
Let's bring up some comments here, and I'll kind of touch on the bench as well. So Colin mentions puzzling move to pull Quinn for Kevin Sullivan. We'll kind of talk about that in a second. Evan mentions we don't have many dynamic attacking midfielders. Very telling that a 15-year-old is preferred over other bench players. Don't have much depth in that area, in his opinion. Again, Liam says still rather have Kevin over Donovan. I think a consensus is there that nobody likes Chris Donovan. That ship has unfortunately sailed for Mr. Donovan. So here were their substitutions tonight. We had Kevin Sullivan, Indy Vasilev, and Alejandro Bedoya, who came into the match. Oh, I'm sorry, and Michael Ua as well. Beyond that, we had Chris Donovan, Olivia Mbizo, Jesus Bueno, Macania, and Andrew Rick. If you're looking at somebody who is a playmaker, who's somebody who's going to make a noticeable difference on the field, I'm assuming Vasilev is really the best sub out of everybody. I think you probably agree with me, Jose. Out of all that collection of players I mentioned, Vasilev is probably the most dynamic. Ua, is going to be that Corey Burke-esque type of player. He's going to come on, try to tire out those legs on Orlando. He's still got some speed. He's obviously got some strength. He's a pretty decent hold-up striker as well, at least in my opinion. But Kevin Sullivan comes in for Quinn Sullivan in a game that you really wanted to either make sure you didn't lose or try to get 3 points out of. And he comes on around the same time as Alejandro Bedoya. I think they came on the same exact time, actually. What were your thoughts when you saw both of those two players come on? 20 years apart in age, by the way.
Yeah, I was shocked to see. And by the way, I just got an assignment, so I probably have another myself alone. Probably another 5 to 10 minutes, maybe. Turns out that they want a story on Sporting Kansas City of all teams, so I gotta I gotta finagle a story about that team.
What's his face? The guy from okay, I can't think of his name right now. Cavincio, right? Whatever his name is.
Yeah, oh my God, I think Cavincho's in the shadows. I think he's retired. I don't think social media was very. They were kind to him. It was just very. I don't think he's into it anymore. I could be wrong. He could be well and ongoing, but Jesus, Mandy, thank you. Completely forgot. Bueno, where is he? Right, Kevin Sullivan's really the better option than Bueno. And listen, I don't want to take anything away from Kevin, but I was shocked to see Sullivan for Kevin type of substitution. I think it goes to talk about the depth that this team has or doesn't have, depending how you see it. Is it cool to see, a 15-year-old who's destined to go away in 2 or 3 years' time? I think so, in a way, but it's also sort of telling that this team maybe needs to do a little bit more here to put players in, I don't want to say better positions, but just I don't know. I don't know what Kevin really. I mean, I guess there was one opportunity off to the right side that Kevin sort of was helpful in aligning, but the time window that he got was not very long. So yeah, I'm intrigued to see or hear like what's going on with Bueno, like what's going on with some of these other players. It's pretty telling when he's jumping over the depth chart quite a bit.
If you're looking for that managerial type of presence, I don't mind Bedoya being there. And when you bring in someone who's as young as Kevin, who's prone to mistakes simply because of his age alone, not that he is making mistakes, but just you worry about that with his age. I don't mind balancing that out with Bedoya, but I just don't think it improved your squad in that moment to go out and get yourself a goal. I think we've had this conversation now on this show. I want to say 3 or 4 times. And I'm sorry for those who've listened every single week. Thank you for joining us every single week. But I think the Jesus Bueno train, or argument, is starting to get more noticeable every single week when Donovan's getting time and Chris Donovan or Kevin Sullivan is getting time, and you're not seeing this team get better with substitutions or having more opportunities on net. I don't know what Jesus Bueno is really going to offer us if he comes in, but at this point, I think I would trust him over Kevin Sullivan at this point. And if the coach doesn't trust him over Kevin Sullivan at this point, then I don't know what's going on. Even with Bedoya as a 35-year-old player, I mean, you would think that Bueno would offer more versatility and more of a dynamic player on the ball over Bedoya, but for some reason, Carnell and I'd say even Jim Curtin don't feel that way. So I think I kind of go back to Evan's point with the dynamic attacking midfielders. This team is deep, and if you put Kai Wagner back into this lineup, the team obviously has some solid depth. But I do feel like we're missing one piece still on the substitution. I think we're missing somebody who's just going to be Ilsinho-esque, or even Fafa Picault. We mentioned Fafa in our conversation with Alex Windley. How great would it be to have somebody with that kind of speed and that kind of skill set on this roster? And I just don't think we have that. And I don't know if we're going to get that come the summertime or if now, whatever. But I feel like this team could be much better with a little bit more depth. Jose, any other thoughts on the subs, or maybe what you would have liked to see instead from Carnell?
Yeah, I was I don't know. I was shocked that there wasn't some more movement, but then as I say it out loud, it's like who else do you move, right? Like who do you pull out, who you put in type of thing. Um yeah, I don't this game was missing just a little bit of an edge in terms of
Martinez?
yeah, well, no, shit, dude. We can talk about that last set of. I actually used the last like 5 minutes of the game to cut those clips and create the gifs or gifs, however you say it, of Vasilev taking the piss out on Schlegel, doing the Argentine waving of the pinched fingers at his face. It was unbelievable. But it seems like Vasilev's breaking that edge a little bit. I think what this team's missing right now, and it's God, like I can't believe it's this hard, but like they're missing Kai, and
Yeah.
a team that heavily relies on him is quite obviously missing him quite a bit. So if they were able to get him back or find some sort of replacement that even does half of the work that Kai does, that this team would be, gosh, on a different level. Because again, there were some opportunities where it was genuinely an inch away from just tapping the ball in and just being right there. It's just difficult. There's Val. Hi. Yeah, 1 goal in 2 games without Kai, and then what was it, like a whole nearly 7 or 8 and 4 or whatever it was. Like it was just it's unreal. So yeah, Kai Minor would be better. Would be great to have in this roster, but that's just not there.
Well, I mean, listen, if you're looking at critiquing this lineup and this roster, I mean, some could say that Jack McGlynn should have stayed on this roster simply for this purpose, that he is a dynamic player. Whether he fits a system or not, you know that once he has the ball at the feet, magical things have and can happen. In general, we just don't do well against these Florida teams. I mean, we saw the statistic against Miami over the last 5 or 6 matches. We have not done well against them. We see the last 5 against Orlando as well. We won 4-2 earlier this year on the first game of the season, February 22nd. And Evan just says Jack McGlynn just scored. So look, as I say that, he goes out and proves himself out there in Houston.
Everybody can watch it right now. Look at this.
Oh, there you go. Some illegal streaming just for you. But we just haven't fared well against Orlando. We beat them 4-2 start of the year. We lost 2-1 October 2nd. We lost 3-2 May 11th. We drew on June 21st 2-2, which was the Jose Martinez screamer of a goal. And then we lost 2-1 against Orlando on May 25th. So I guess, again, Jose, kind of going back to your point at the start of the show, optimistically speaking, we took 4 points against Orlando. pessimistically speaking, we should have taken 6 points, and we just don't look like a complete team as of right now without Kai Wagner. And I think one of these conversations we have every single year is who's the most important person on this Union roster outside of Andre Blake. And I think Kai Wagner, as of right now, is showing that he probably is that person. Todd Lewis and Kyle Almany have joined me. Jose, if you want to scoot out now, now's your time. As much as I'll miss you. Jose's
Todd,
under.
Todd, Kyle, great to see you. I This is actually perfect timing because I got to go write a story about Sporting Kansas City, who is now winning 2-0 against St. Louis. New manager bump, interim manager bump, some would say. I don't know. Maybe, but MLS wants a story. So on that note, Mike, thank you so much. Todd, Kyle, anything super interesting, high level from the press conference that you guys want to share?
Not really. It was pretty. What would you say, dry? And we spoke with Mikel and Bruno, and yeah, not a whole lot to report.
I mean, the only thing to report is you finally had a coach call out Orlando City for their tactics of time wasting, which is the typical way that Orlando City likes to play, whether it be at home or away. And you finally get a coach that calls out Orlando City for the game plan. And yeah, I mean, I guess it is really no surprise how Orlando City wanted to approach this game. But as I texted you, Jose, it's mind-blowing to me where you look at that attacking talent that Orlando City has and Pasalic, Ojeda, Luis Muriel, Duncan McGuire coming off the bench. And I mean, how many times do all four of us, on our shows on here talk about the depth that other team has, the attacking talent other teams have compared to the Union coming off the bench? And I do think that the Union have a really deep squad, maybe potentially the deepest squad that they've had in the last couple seasons. But when you look at the attacking talent off the bench for Orlando City compared to the Union, I mean, you've got players that are worth millions and millions of dollars coming off that bench and in that starting 11 that the Union frankly don't have. And to watch them come in here and try to waste as much time as they did was not too surprising, but at the same time, it is surprising with the amount of attacking talent that they have.
Absolutely.
I think that's bang on. We sort of talked about that, Mike, right? When in the first half, like it's mind blowing that Orlando goes and parks the bus, but then again, Todd and Kyle and Mike, it's sort of really, in a way, rare territory that the Union find themselves in, actually being second in the East for the first time in a very long time. So, taking the Union side away and just thinking league wide, like it's actually, you win at home, draw away. That's how you typically win championships. And Orlando did what they were supposed to. They walked away with points away from home. So it is what it is.
Yeah, and I don't have the number in front of me, but if I'm not mistaken, Orlando City's been one of the best away teams the last couple seasons in MLS play. And so, I don't have the number in front of me, but if I'm not mistaken, I mean, they've got at least 10 wins, I want to say, the last 2 years on the road in MLS play, and they know how to get a result. And so if you're an Orlando City fan, if you're an Orlando City player, you feel like this is a really well-deserved point. And this is a game where, let's face it, without Andre Blake, maybe Orlando City could have came away with all 3 points if it wasn't for the saves that Andre Blake made in this game. But from the Union side of things, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit frustrating where you had 21 shots. I think it is only 4 on target. And yeah, they created a lot of chances in this game or had a lot of shots. But I would say a lot of those shots that the Union took were nothing dangerous, nothing that was too concerning for the Orlando City side. And is that concerning for the Union? Maybe. And just looking at the map for the shots taken, majority of the Union shots tonight were taken outside of the box. And if I'm not mistaken, probably the Union's best chance of the night was that shot by Jovan Lukic in the first half that was outside the 18. Galese reads it late and it almost sneaks past him at the far post. But it feels like, okay, looking at the chances that Orlando City had, Union come away, another clean sheet, third clean sheet, I think you said, Kyle, which is a positive for this team where, they struggled last year keeping clean sheets at home and clean sheets overall. So, I mean, you take the positives, but yeah, definitely could have been a game that I think Union could have lost if it wasn't for Andre Blake.
Yep.
Yeah, see you, Jose. I'll talk to you later. We talked about it as well, and I think maybe even just the fact that the Union took the first game of the season against Orlando they're not going to want to blow 2 games against us, especially this early in the season, and to have that, if tiebreakers down the road, whatever it might be, comes into play, they at least want to take 1 point away from us. And I thought they attacked us pretty effectively tonight, and they probably should have scored one against us. And Jose talked about Jacob Glesnes tonight too. Like, do we see a Makanya and Glavinovic pairing because of how Jacob has been inconsistent tonight? Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say one interesting thing that I don't know if you guys listened to any of Bradley Cornell's press conference or not. I don't know if people in here in the chat listened to it at all. But one thing that Bradley Cornell had mentioned was, the reason that Bruno Damiani had started is because the Union have a busy stretch coming up. And they want to get guys minutes because there's going to be a lot of rotation coming up in the next couple of weeks. And so tonight was one of those games where he felt it was possible to play Bruno Damiani against Orlando City, and maybe this could have been an opportunity to go with a Glavinovic and Makanya partnership instead of Jacob Glesnes. But yeah, I would be curious to see what it takes for Bradley Cornell to drop Jacob Glesnes out of that starting 11.
I would be too, because I'd be really curious to see about Makanya, just the way I think he matches up well with Glavinovic. However, Makanya is very raw too, and so is Jan. But for me, I think with the amount of minutes, and you've talked about it, Todd, the amount of minutes that Jacob's played over the last couple of years, we saw tonight a couple mistakes. One almost caused the goal there in that first half, where he slips until he misses his tackle. I would invite that, because I think that could be something that would keep Jacob healthy and lead a little bit more fresh. But also, Ernst talked about at the beginning here, not blocking pathways. Get Makanya some minutes here and there. Let him continue to develop, and he's gonna learn one way or the other. So,
I think by the end of the year, however things pan out, there will be some sort of conversation with, did we get rid of the correct center back? Was Jack Elliott the person we should have kept? Was Jacob Glesnes the right man to stay in Philadelphia? We're not entirely sure. I'm not opposed.
Can I answer that?
Sure.
I think the Union would have kept Jack Elliott over Jacob Glesnes, but his contract was too much. I mean, he's making over $1 million, and who in MLS would pick up that contract? I don't think anybody would have. No team in Europe would have taken a center back that's pushing 30 years old or is over 30 years old on $1 million. And I think it was just a process of the Union not wanting to pay $1 million for 2 center backs on the roster. And so I think if the Union would have had trade offers for Jacob Glesnes, if they would have found a team willing to take on that salary, then I think we would have seen Jack Elliott remain here. Let's not forget, right, that Jack Elliott was not from Philadelphia, but he embodied what Philadelphia was about, right? There's a guy who got drafted in the 4th round out of college at West Virginia University, and how many of those guys make it in the league, and how many times have we seen Jack Elliott lose his spot and not been given an opportunity? When they brought in Jacob Glesnes, it was Glesnes and McKenzie as a partnership, and we saw Jack Elliott lose his starting spot.
Yep.
And so Elliott's had to fight so many times to get into the starting lineup, and each time that his number was called, he always performed. And of course, Jack Elliott had issues last season, just like this whole team. But I think, if the Union could have found a team that was willing to take on that contract, then I think the Union would have had no issues whatsoever bringing in bringing back Jack Elliott. Because if I'm not mistaken, Ernst Tanner had said that they did send an offer for Jack Elliott. He declined that, and I'll be curious at the end of April, first week of May, how much Chicago Fire are paying Jack Elliott. If I'm not mistaken, he was making close to $900,000 last season for the Union. I wouldn't be surprised if Chicago are paying him over $1 million this season. And no team in MLS is paying 2 center backs over $1 million each. And so the Union certainly weren't going to be that. And we all know that they needed attackers. And why lock up $1 million each in center backs when you need to go out and get attackers? And you saw them go out and get a Bruno Damiani, an Indiana Vasilev, a Jovan Lukic, who isn't an attacker, but they filled key areas that I think were a little bit of a bigger need than center backs, in my opinion.
It's funny though. It's if things had just gone a little differently, Jack Elliott would have been a hero for this franchise for years and years because of the amazing performance he had in MLS Cup. I have a very soft spot for Jack Elliott, but again, a conversation we can probably have further down the road to see once everything.
I think everybody does for
Yeah.
watching his performance in MLS Cup.
Oh,
It was unbelievable. But I mean, here's a conversation. I mean, we talked about again Makanya, Glavinovic, seeing that the pairings of the back line. People in the comments mentioning, well, why are we bringing Kevin Sullivan in? At least we're not seeing Donovan. Why isn't Bueno seeing the field, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Do we see a roster soon? I'm going to ask you both this question, where Vasilev is starting for Daniel Gazdag. Because I feel like he does bring a lot of, I would say, tenacity, energy. I like how he is on the ball. I think he's aggressive. He's definitely something that has been useful as a substitution. Do we see some competition behind Daniel Gazdag? Because he feels like an automatic start too every single week. But I mean, no offense to Daniel, I don't think he's exactly playing phenomenal either. Do you guys think that Vasilev maybe bumps him out one game to kind of spark some competition back there?
I'll let Kyle take this first. I have thoughts on this.
Oh, yes. Okay, here we go.
I don't think so. However, I think it would be a good thing if they did. But I mean, Gazdag still brings, now he only has 2 goals this year. He does bring that scoring threat, but you do see the ball move a little bit better with Indiana up there, and I think that's good. I mean, he plays the system that Carnell wants to play, and while Gazdag will get the goals and occasionally the assists, he's kind of there's also moments in the game where he's just pushed off the ball, and he also just kind of disappears. And for his position, you need somebody that is engaged the entire 90 minutes. And so for me, I would welcome the competition, but I don't know if Carnell yet anyway would have the stones, so to speak, to make that move. I think, but to your point, Mike, here and there, sure, if he's a little banged up or something like that, absolutely. Don't play if 80% Gazdag, put Indy in.
Even from a depth standpoint, and Todd, I'll let you talk in a second, Todd, but just from like Kai Wagner, Daniel Gazdag, Jacob Glesnes, even Ty Baribo, who's played a lot, these guys do need some rest. Quinn Sullivan, we know he's like a workhorse, but wouldn't hurt to have him rest a bit. Go ahead, Todd. What do you think on Vasilev there?
You can pull Evan's comment up again.
Sure.
He had said Gazdag disappears at times, but I would argue, what has Ty Baribo done these last 2 games? You had mentioned to me at halftime, Kyle, that Baribo had a pretty quiet half, and yep. I agree with you. Another player who I thought had a quiet game was Quinn Sullivan, and that's the player that I would consider subbing out for Indiana Vasilev. And I know Quinn is loved in this fan base. He gets a lot of praise, but I think at times he's way too inconsistent. There's times when he just slows down the play way too often, where his team's going 100% and tries to slow it down to 70-80%, whether that be trying to beat players off the dribble, trying to just go with cutback passes, and you don't need that. And because of that, I think it gets Quinn off of his game a little bit. And so I would argue that it's more so Quinn Sullivan than a Daniel Gazdag, because at least that, look, Gazdag may not be scoring the goals, assisting like you had hoped. And I do realize that Quinn Sullivan has 4 assists on the season, or is it 3? I think it's 4 with the MLS secondary assist.
Yeah.
But I just think, look at his off the ball movement, cutting in from the left inside the middle, Daniel Gazdag that is, and his chemistry can't be disputed with Ty Baribo and Mikal Ua. And so we see so many other flicks. I mean, we saw it last week down in Miami where it's a flick one by Daniel Gazdag into Mikal Ua. Mikal Ua is 1v1 against the goalkeeper, and that's one of them that he should be putting in the back of the net. So I would argue that it should be Quinn Sullivan's position up for grabs, not really so much Daniel Gazdag. But again, I started this saying that Ty Reber has been disappearing. Evan says Daniel Gazdag, Quinn Sullivan. I mean, so many players on this team find themselves disappearing at times, and you can say that for any team around the league, just not the Union.
No, I think that's completely fair, and I do think what we're seeing this year is the emphasis on competition. And you know what, Todd? As much as I'm a Quinn Sullivan stan. He was not really present tonight, and I agree. If you need to have some creativity and some versatility with your lineup, and sitting Quinn Sullivan for one game just to even give him a rest. Let's see what Vasilev and Daniel Gazdag can do together behind those forwards, and maybe it's something that ends up working. And Quinn Sullivan as a super sub is not exactly a bad thing. We know what he can bring in that role. We saw a bit last year. We know what he can bring as a starter. So I'm open for anything.
And now we'd say the same thing about Mikal. I don't think Mikal being a super sub's a bad thing.
Yeah.
But what my issue was with Mikal, you play him in a 4-2-3-1, you play him as the lone striker. Mikal told us after the game, he's comfortable playing in that position. He's played it before. But, he's a better striker when he has a striker partner.
Yeah,
he admitted to us. We all know this. He makes runs in behind the strikers. That's his game. When you want him to be the striker that's holding up play or chasing the balls out wide, now you don't have that outlet pass inside. There was a play towards the end of the game, I think it was, where Mikal, to his credit, kept the ball in play, but you only had two players crashing in the box. You don't want Mikal chasing that. You want Mikal in the box.
Yeah.
And so I don't fault Mikal for the game that he had, because I don't think the system did him any favors tonight. There was a comment here that Mandy had mentioned that I also want to touch on, that she said Ty without Kai is a different player entirely. And I would say that is true, but I would say this whole team without Kai Wagner is completely
100%.
different. I'm not sure if you guys hit on this, but notice that it's less and less crosses. You don't have Nathan going as forward as Kai Wagner, or as often as Kai Wagner would if he's in this game. And that just tells you how important that Kai Wagner is to this team.
I honestly think that's one of the underlying storylines of, even we were talking about just when they made those subs, who was going to take the corners. I mean,
Vasilev took a couple.
I know, but it's just like, Kai's going to take the corner, and it was kind of a revolving door there, and it's just the delivery into the box, like Todd said. It just like games like this just go to show you how valuable Kai Wagner is to this club and the success.
He's extremely valuable, and I think also, Todd, you're mentioning Ua's role in the system, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but have we seen any sort of change in the formations yet this year? I feel like it's been the same exact thing each and every single match. I'd be curious to know what kind of things we can switch up. If things aren't working, if maybe players are missing, like Kai Wagner.
Yeah, I mean, so when they subbed off Damiani and Reba, they went to a 4-2-3-1. We've seen that before. They practiced that in preseason, and Bradley Cornell had said at the beginning of the year, the 4-2-3-1 compared to the 4-2-2 isn't much of a difference. And
sure,
I tend to agree with that for the most part. But again, I mean, take away one striker, and now you only have one striker up top instead of two. Yeah, I mean, you take away an outlet pass when you have Mikal Uri running down into the channel, and when he's looking to cross it, you only have two players crossing the box. So yeah, right there is an issue. But I guess, I mean, could you go back to a 4-4-2 diamond? Yeah, potentially. I thought maybe that would be what they would go to when they brought in Bedoya and Indiana Vasilev, but they opted for the 4-2-3-1, which makes a lot of sense. I'm trying to think what else would work well with this team. Could you play three in the back? Yeah, potentially, and then have your fullbacks push up high for sure. But you don't really have the wingers. You don't have any wingers really to
you haven't had wingers.
4-3-3. Mikal, has had opportunities in Brøndby in Denmark playing as a winger. Quinn Sullivan's more so a winger. He can play there. Indiana Vasilev can play there, but I would say the only true winger you have in this team is a Quinn Sullivan. I think Gavin Sullivan could probably play there as well, but definitely trying to switch to wingers wouldn't work for this team. I mean, you are definitely limited on what formation-wise you can do, but Yeah, they played 4-2-3-1. Going back to your question, Mike, I think a couple times this season when they've changed things up.
Yeah, Kyle. I mean, how about you? I mean, entering next week, we have a game against NYCFC. Do you want to see a formation change? I mean, or do you want to see maybe a particular person next week that we've been kind of talking about this week or this evening rather?
It depends on the matchup. I mean, I'd like to see maybe Indy.
I think so.
He might be very good against NYCFC.
I think it's time.
Just the way the style is. I know Mikel said he's been dealing with some injuries, so if he's still not 100%, he did tell us post-match that he's kind of had some stuff, nothing major, but even I don't know if you saw it, Mike, he kind of was grabbing his hand there towards the end. He kind of just...
Yeah, I'm not sure if they showed that on the broadcast or not.
Yeah, he kind of did a little tweak, and Todd, to his credit, asked him about that, and Mikel basically said, just tweak something. So if he's still not 100%, I'd start Damiani up there with Ty again. I thought Bruno was good on the night. But in terms of actual formation changes, look, I don't think Carnell's going to go away from his philosophy. Let's put it that way. And maybe that's, just that's who he is as a coach. But I think also that you want to definitely – maybe I'll be curious more about the in-game substitutions, the in-game tactics, because tonight, and you and I were talking about that, felt like at times the substitutions weren't always the best, especially there towards the end. But just, like you said, just the in-game things, I want to see maybe a little bit better. If they do that, I think they can get a point or 3 up in New York City for sure.
I think.
Yeah, I mean, I had said to Kyle, I didn't think this was a Mikel Uwa game, and I definitely didn't think this was a Kevin Sullivan game. But I mean, looking at that bench, you
the commenters would agree with you, Todd.
You said they would.
They've agreed with you. Yeah, it was not a Kevin Sullivan game.
It wasn't.
Olivier Bizo, Alouetu, Macania, Jesus Bueno, Chris Donovan. Bueno is more of a defensive player. Macania is obviously a center back. Bizo's better going forward. I think this potentially could have been a game, honestly, for Olivier to come off the bench when you felt like you needed a goal. Even Chris Donovan. And I know this fan base isn't big on Chris Donovan, but again, if you're going to go with Mikel Uwa up top as a lone striker, I think that's a role that's more suited for Chris Donovan if you indeed want to play a 4-2-3-1 than Mikel Uwa. So I do agree with Kyle. I don't think the substitutions were great tonight by Bradley Crennel, and knowing that Mikel said he's been dealing with an injury maybe makes a little bit more sense why Bruno played tonight. But I'm not. It's hard to say that Bradley Crennel got this lineup wrong because Union did come away with a point.
Sure,
but
against a team they struggled to even get a point on.
Yeah, exactly.
Historically speaking.
And they lost 2 straight games at home against Orlando City.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. So, I mean, you take some optimistic way, obviously the clean sheet as well.
Sure.
But yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you joining me. As you know, Jose Nunez had to hop off to take care of his MLS duties. I'll always give you two a chance to plug anything away. Todd, I'll go to you first, as always. Todd, what's up with you?
Yeah, you can check out the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook at Free Kick Pod. Check out my handle as you have it there, Mike, at It's a Todd's Life. Personal handle. Check out the YouTube channel for goals breakdown videos. And I was talking to Kyle. Yeah, I don't even know what I'm going to do for this video as no goals was scored. So I guess defensive plays, Andre Blake saves, and chances created. But yeah, you can check out the YouTube page, youtube.com/freekickpod, where you get your podcast, The Free Kick. Plan on doing a live show tomorrow. Don't know how that's going to go because how much do we have to talk about? But look, approaching an hour on your show, Mike. So obviously there is stuff to talk about. And then if you want to check out my writing, podcast, or goals breakdown video all in one place, thefreekick.substack.com.
Kyle, your turn, sir.
And so you can check me out, Coach Omni. You can check out Jilly at Silly_Jilly. And I almost butchered that and she yelled at me. And you can check out our website, www.theoneteamweagree on. We have 2 interviews coming up. We have an interview tomorrow, and then we have an interview that both Jillian and I are really, really, really excited about, and I think some fans are going to be really, really excited about. I don't want to jinx it, but we got a really awesome interview planned for later this week, and then of course we got some articles coming out as well.
You guys always have interviews lined up. I love that. Yeah, if people who watch right now have not yet followed Todd, Kyle, or Jillian, or anybody else we have on the show, please do. They do great work. I think something we'll talk about in a couple weeks from now is Cole's point right here. Donovan has not proven to be deserving of the minutes. What does team do to find that fourth striker? But if Donovan Ua is nursing some sort of injury, not a whole lot of optimism right now behind Damiani and Tyree in terms of strikers who are going to come on and make an impact. But that is our show for tonight. Again, I appreciate everybody joining us. Again, the Facebook admins are very delayed in posting the show, so please follow us on Facebook. So if you want to watch on that, you're more than capable to without having to wait for them to post on the Union fan discussion. Otherwise, all the people who joined tonight, all I see can be on on YouTube. Thank you for subscribing. Hopefully you did, and following us on YouTube. Again, my name is Mike Barrera from AAT Sports. We be going live every single night, or every single post game rather, as much as we possibly can. Last week I was very sick, so I appreciate you. I think you, Todd, and Kyle and Jose, everybody holding it down for me. I was just not not in a good place to do any sort of a show that evening. Also, if you want to get any of our merch, please send me or Jose a DM for some of our across the pitch merchandise you can find there as well. Very cool stuff, fairly affordable compared to the things you'll find in the Union shop. But again, everybody, it was a 0-0 draw tonight at Chester, Union versus Orlando City. We have NYCFC on the 12th in and in New York. So hopefully the Union can pull off a point or 3 points out there. But otherwise, thank you everybody for watching tonight. Todd, Kyle, thanks for joining us. Go Union.